For 100 years, medicine has been obsessed with the body's hardware. But today, we are finally hacking the software. We're talking about the electrical signals that control growth, cancer, and regeneration. Imagine you just spent your entire life savings on a cutting-edge, impossibly fast supercomputer. So you get it home, you plug it in, you fire it up, and nothing works right.
The operating system is buggy, the algorithms are glitching out, and it keeps running the wrong programs. You've got this $1 million machine that honestly thinks it's a toaster.
Well, for centuries, that's how medicine has viewed the human body, as just the hardware. We've obsessed over the proteins, the organs, the chemistry, the bones.
We fix the hardware, right? We swap out parts, we target bad molecules with drugs, we try to snip out problematic genes.
But the sources we're diving into today, this radical emerging field of study, it suggests we've missed the most shocking truth of all. The hardware is incredible, yes, but the root of health, of healing, and even of form, what tells a cluster of cells to become a lung and not, say, a knee.
It isn't chemistry at all.
It's the software. And that software is electrical.
Welcome to the bioelectric frontier. We are about to do a deep dive into a world where life, health, and disease are governed by voltage maps, informational fields, and vibrational coherence.
This really is the paradigm shift from the chemical age of medicine to what we're now calling the bioelectric age.
And this is some truly mind-blowing stuff. We're going to show you how researchers can literally scramble a frog embryo. Shuffle its cells like a deck of cards. You get a genuine Picasso tadpole.
And it reorganizes itself back into a perfect functional frog face.
How is that even possible?
Because the cells are following a collective electrical blueprint, an invisible operating system that dictates the final form, no matter how much you mess with the parts.
So, our mission today is to decode that high-level electrical language. We're going to explore the cellular blueprints, the physics of disease, the hidden antenna inside your DNA, and the quantum symphony that apparently runs the whole show. Get ready. Okay. Let's unpack this, starting at the most foundational level. What creates physical form? If I ask 100 people on the street, 99 of them are going to say DNA.
Genes.
Of course, that's what we've all been taught. Genes are the instructions.
But the more you read into this bioelectric work, the more you realize the genome is, it's really only half the story.
That's absolutely right. And a great way to think of the genome is as the ultimate parts list. It specifies in exquisite detail how to make every tiny piece of hardware, all the proteins, the enzymes, the molecules.
All the nuts and bolts.
Exactly. But, and this is what the source material just hammers home, the genome contains absolutely zero information about the final size, the complex shape, or the symmetry of the completed organism.
So it's the ingredients list, but it's not the assembly manual. It's not the IKEA instructions. You can have all the perfect proteins, but if they don't know where to go or when to stop building, you just end up with a very well-organized pile of goo.
But how does a salamander know to grow exactly the right length of arm, form exactly 5 fingers on its hand, and then, crucially, hit the kill switch and stop regenerating?
Right. That level of high-order intelligence, that goal-oriented behavior, isn't genetic. It's informational. It's electrical.
And this is where researchers like Michael Levin come in with this idea of the electric face, or the bioelectrical memory.
Yes, and this is such a key concept. He's basically extending the principles of neuroscience beyond just neurons in the brain, and he's asserting that all of our cells maintain and communicate through electrical states.
They have a kind of collective local intelligence.
They do. They manage this through ion channels. These are tiny protein gateways in the cell membrane that let charged ions, like potassium and sodium, flow in and out. That's what creates the voltage.
Okay, but how do they talk to each other if they aren't neurons?
Through structures called gap junctions. Now think of gap junctions as the actual windows or electrical ports connecting neighboring houses. They allow a direct flow of electrical current and small molecules between cells that aren't nerves. It's the cellular internet.
So if the outside of the cell is positive and the inside is negative, that difference is the cell's membrane voltage, the VMEM as they call it. But you're saying it's not just a simple on or off switch, it forms a map.
Precisely. It's a map. Researchers use these incredible voltage-sensitive fluorescent dyes that literally glow differently depending on the electrical state of the cell to visualize these states in a developing embryo.
So they can see the electricity.
You can see it in real time. And what they see is not random noise. It's a massive, complex, but totally predictable heat map of voltages. That right there is the bioelectrical memory. the electrical pre-pattern.
This is the morphological scaffolding, the invisible field that tells all those proteins and molecules where to position themselves.
Exactly. If you look at a tadpole embryo, before it even starts folding and dividing into specific organs, you can already see the electrical blueprint for its face.
The electric face.
The electric face, yeah.
Yeah.
You can see the voltage pattern that dictates where the mouth will open, where the two eyes will form, the whole deal. It's the master plan, and it precedes the physical construction.
You know, that immediately makes me think of the classic work of Hans Driesch way back, a century ago?
Oh, absolutely. His work was so ahead of its time.
He was experimenting with sea urchin embryos, and he would separate the individual cells at a really early stage. And each cell, completely isolated from its neighbors, still grew into a full, perfectly formed, albeit smaller, sea urchin.
That's the principle of equipotentiality. Each individual cell had the potential to become any part of the whole embryo. It still had access to the complete blueprint.
And then when Driesch scrambled the embryo, the Picasso tadpole, before its time, he found equifinality. It still reached the normal final form just through totally novel paths.
What Driesch proved, without having the tools to see the electricity, was that the informational template, the blueprint, was present in the whole system, not just hard-coded into each individual cell's programming.
So bringing it back to that regenerating salamander, it's not executing some long, linear, hardwired genetic code that says, grow 400 cells this way, then stop.
No, it's an error minimization scheme. That's the best way to describe it. The collective structure has a really good idea, as Levin puts it, of its final anatomical goal state. It knows it's a four-legged animal, and the blueprint is constantly screaming, you are missing a leg.
So it regenerates until the error is minimized.
Until the electrical blueprint for whole animal is fully matched again. That completion signal, that stopping mechanism, is simply the recognition that the bioelectrical goal state has been met. The error message is gone.
Which brings us to the experiment that, for me, just makes this completely undeniable, the subroutine call, building eyes on the gut of a tadpole.
It is absolutely mind-bending. So the researchers took cells near the gut of a frog tadpole. These are cells that are genetically programmed to be internal digestive tissue, nothing to do with eyes.
And they didn't touch the genes?
No gene editing, no stem cells. All they did was inject a very specific, simple bioelectrical pattern. They changed the voltage of those gut cells to match the voltage pattern that says I.
It was the equivalent of a software command, a subroutine call encoding the information. Build an eye right here.
And then you just watch what happens. The gut cells, which were never supposed to be eye cells, just start building an eye. But they don't do it alone, and this is the incredible part.
This is the kicker.
The manipulated cells recruited their neighboring, completely unmanipulated cells to complete the structure. They convinced them to help.
So they just said, hey, neighbors, we're building an eye over here, and the cells around them went, oh, okay, I'll be the optic nerve then. You need a lens, I gotcha.
That's basically it. It's collective problem solving that completely overrides the original hardwired genetic program for that location on the body. It shows this incredible modularity. You don't have to micromanage every single protein. You just need to call the high-level function build eye.
It's proof that the informational pattern, that voltage landscape, that VMEM map, is the real guiding force. It's the field that dictates the form.
It is. It overrides local genetic and anatomical limitations.
Which, of course, raises the darkest possible question. If the body, as a collective, has this beautiful embedded memory of what it should look like, what happens when that collective intelligence breaks down?
What happens when the software crashes?
Exactly. If the software form is this powerful, what does a software crash actually look like in the body?
Well, the hypothesis we're exploring today is that crash is cancer. And next, we're going to dive into cancer, not as a genetic failure, but as a profound failure of this collective electrical intelligence, a terrifying, literal dissociative identity disorder in our own cells. When we talk about cancer, we are still, for the most part, stuck in the chemical age. We look for the genetic mutation, the accumulated DNA damage, the oncogene.
Right. We view it as a war against this hyper-aggressive, mutated enemy cell that we have to poison or radiate out of existence.
But the bioelectric lens, it just shifts the entire viewpoint.
Yeah.
Cancer, through this lens, is fundamentally a communication failure. It's a profound loss of collective purpose, and it's driven by electrical disconnection.
A cell going rogue because it's been cut off from the network.
Precisely. And the primary mechanism for that is the role of those gap junctions we talked about. Remember, the electrical windows connecting the cells. When oncogenes, those genes that push for uncontrolled growth, get expressed, The very first thing they do is actively shut down electrical connectivity. They close those gap junctions, severing the link between the affected cell and its neighbors.
So the cell physically isolates itself. It puts up walls. Why is that isolation so essential for a tumor to form?
Because the network is the cognitive glue. A normal liver cell or a skin cell is constantly receiving a flood of anatomical information from its thousands of neighbors.
Signals like what?
Signals like, you are part of a liver, you are the correct size, don't divide right now, we're full. It's a constant consensus reality. When the gap junctions close, that cell suddenly goes deaf. It stops receiving that high-level global information.
It has a tinier self. I love that phrase from the source material. It doesn't recognize itself as part of a liver anymore.
Exactly. It reverts to the most basic, local, unicellular goal state of its ancient solitary ancestors, which is simply grow, divide, survive locally. It loses the large-scale self that processes the anatomical information and enforces the organ's collective agenda.
So it's a scaling problem. The cell isn't necessarily more selfish or evil, it's just delusional. It's become a dissociative identity, acting as if it's a standalone organism in the cold, uncaring universe, completely forgetting it's actually part of a massive, globally organized system.
The connectivity is the intelligence. Break the connectivity, you break the intelligence.
And this implies that fixing the gene might be totally irrelevant if the information network is still broken, which leads to the experiment that, for me, completely flips the script on the genetics first model of cancer.
This is the one. This is the experiment that really turns everything on its head. Researchers took a nasty, well-known, tumor-causing human oncogene, a KRS mutation, and they injected it into a frog embryo.
So conventionally, that cell should become cancerous and just proliferate uncontrollably into a tumor.
It should, but, and this is the absolute key, they simultaneously co-injected a specific piece of ion channel RNA.
And what did that RNA do?
It was selected precisely because it resisted the disconnection and depolarization that the oncogene tries to cause. In simple terms, it forced the gap junctions to stay open. It kept the lines of communication open.
They kept the compromised cell electrically connected and forced it to keep listening to its neighbors.
Yes. And the result? No tumor. The cells, despite carrying the known genetic defect, the compromised hardware, continued to participate in normal morphogenesis. They just built a normal frog.
So the overriding physiological, the bioelectric state, dictated the outcome. The software of the network corrected the hardware bug in real time.
That's what the evidence suggests. It is profound. It suggests that our genetics might be secondary to the informational state of the network. Cancer becomes a memory problem, a cell forgetting what it's supposed to be. And the way you fix that memory is by restoring electrical communication.
Which opens up entirely new strategies for treatment.
Completely. First, for diagnostics. We can detect these aberrant electrical potentials, the shifting voltage state that indicates a cell is starting to isolate itself, long before a tumor becomes visually apparent.
You could see the memory breakdown happening live with those voltage-sensitive dyes.
You could. And second, for intervention, you get the emergence of electroceuticals. The goal shifts entirely. It's no longer about killing the cell. It's about reconnecting the cell.
So instead of chemotherapy, which is a blunt instrument that often creates even more resistant cells, the strategy is to force that rogue cell back into the network, where it's reminded of its collective purpose.
And we can do that by manipulating the native electrical interface, those ion channels and gap junctions, using tools that are targeted to specific voltage differences. The future of this is probably AI simulators using what's called physiomics.
Physiomics.
A deep understanding of the ideal bioelectrical states for every organ. The AI could scan a massive library of existing drugs, not for their chemical properties, but for their ability to tweak ion channels to restore the correct electrical connectivity in a specific tissue.
Would be using targeted information and voltage to fix the master plan itself. Okay, so we've established that the body is run by this electrical software, and that disease, or at least cancer, can be seen as a failure in that communication network. But let's go back to scale. How does that electrical information travel across the vastness of the body so much faster than chemicals just floating around?
Yeah, chemical diffusion is way too slow for this.
It suggests the body has a much faster system than just slow, leaky wires.
It does. And to understand the speed and the range of this communication, we have to stop thinking just about wires and circuits and start thinking about broadcasting and fields. It's time to explore the body's multi-band antenna system, which, it turns out, begins with the structure you thought you knew best, DNA.
Okay, before we dive into DNA as an antenna,
Yeah.
let's pause for a second and connect these dots because my mind is spinning a little.
A good place for a breather.
We've laid out a foundational understanding of this bioelectric frontier. We know that these voltage maps, the electric face, are the software that guides our physical form and allows for incredible regeneration. That was Act 1.
And we've just shown in Act 2 that disease, particularly cancer, can be reframed as a failure of that network. An electrical isolation, a dissociative identity disorder, where cells lose their collective memory.
Right, so what you've just heard is that your body is a massive error-minimizing regenerative computer, and it's running on electrical commands.
But the speed at which a complex organism has to coordinate all its parts requires instantaneous communication. It's way beyond what chemical diffusion or even standard nerve signals can really explain.
If the cell in my big toe needs a real-time update on what my pancreas is doing, it needs a high-speed, wireless network. So we're moving from anatomy to physics.
And we're realizing that the solution is right there in the very structure of life itself. It's light and vibration.
So how do you transfer instantaneous information across a complex biological system?
You use a non-material medium, use electromagnetic waves, and in this next act, we're going to look at DNA not as a passive code, but as a live broadcasting antenna. And we're going to explore the astonishing, almost unbelievable phenomenon of DNA teleportation.
All right, DNA. When most people picture it, they think of the double helix, the genetic code, the static blueprints for proteins. It's just code sitting there, waiting to be read.
It's seen as a passive library. But the bioelectric frontier demands that we see DNA as something much, much more dynamic.
It's alive.
It's alive. The hypothesis is that the unique structure of DNA, especially its helical repeating geometry, functions precisely as a fractal antenna.
Why fractal? What does that mean?
Well, fractal geometry is perfect for antennas because it allows them to resonate across a massive range of frequencies rather than just one specific frequency. It's a multi-band system.
So DNA isn't just a code library. It's a living, dynamic piece of hardware, a broadband receiver and transmitter.
Potentially even a 3D reconfigurable computer chip capable of manipulating and generating high-frequency electromagnetic energy.
And what form does that energy take?
Primarily, it's light. Specifically what we call ultra-weak photon emissions, or UPEs. Most people call them biophotons.
So you're telling me my body is glowing?
Yes. Your body is glowing right now. Every single cell in your body, from your liver to your brain, is communicating using these tiny, highly coherent bursts of light. But people might ask, okay, wait, is this just heat? Like a random byproduct of metabolism, like steam coming off a hot engine?
That is a great clarifying question, and the answer is a definitive no. They are fundamentally different from thermal heat. These are extremely low intensity, but highly coherent photons, like a very, very weak laser.
Coherent means organized, informational.
Exactly. They're non-biochemical organizing agents. The theory is that they guide cellular physiology through pulse coding like Morse code, using flashes of light, and by using different wavelengths or colors for different messages.
They're informational signals. I know some of the early Russian research teams in the 60s were really pivotal in establishing this, right? That all living things emit this ultra-weak radiation.
They were, and they show that its intensity relates directly to the health and physiological state of the organism. It's basically an assay for stress.
Biophoton emissions are intrinsically associated with metabolic stress and perturbed homeostasis. If a cell is struggling, say, with oxidative stress from toxins or an incoming pathogen, its photon emission intensity fluctuates wildly.
So it's a rapid early warning system, an indicator of cellular health.
It's literally the cell crying for help using light.
Okay, so that's communication via light within the body. But this act also contains one of the most controversial and therefore one of the most fascinating claims in all of modern science: DNA teleportation radio signals.
Right. This comes from the work of the Nobel laureate Luc Montagnier. And you have to walk through this carefully because it sounds like science fiction.
I'm ready. Walk me through it.
So Montagnier's research suggested that highly diluted aqueous solutions of viral or bacterial DNA, and we're talking dilutions so high that there's virtually no original DNA material left in the test tube.
So it's basically just water.
It's basically just water.
Yeah.
But that water can still emit low-frequency electromagnetic signals, EMS.
The water itself is broadcasting a signal.
Precisely. The field generated in the water carries the informational sequence of the DNA that used to be there. And here's the unbelievable part. They could then use a sensitive detector to capture that electromagnetic signal
Okay.
and play it back into a different container of pure, sterilized water, a container that only had the basic chemical building blocks of DNA in it.
And then what?
Then, using standard molecular methods like PCR amplification, they were able to reconstruct the original DNA sequence from that second tube.
The original DNA sequence was transferred through an electromagnetic signal, encoded into the structure of water, and then rebuilt in a completely different location using only the field as the informational medium.
That's why we call it teleportation.
That is absolutely wild.
It fundamentally suggests that long-range, coherent molecular interaction must be present, likely mediated by the quantum structure of water itself. It allows information transfer through fields, not just physical contact. The DNA sequence is broadcast like a radio signal that the cellular machinery is designed to pick up.
This just keeps getting weirder and more sophisticated. And you're saying DNA isn't the only powerful emitter in the body?
Not at all. Beyond DNA, there are other master transmitters. It's been observed that large neuron clusters in the head and, importantly, in the heart, also transfer information using extremely low frequencies, or ELF, via this kind of photonic communication.
And that really sets up the heart as a major player in this information network, not just a pump.
The major player. The heart is actually the dominant source of the body's entire electromagnetic field.
Okay, we have just established that your DNA might be a sophisticated fractal antenna, that you communicate with your own cells using ultra-weak light, and that genetic information can apparently be transferred via a radio signal through water. If you are as hooked as we are, and if your mind is still in one piece, please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button.
Seriously, your support is what lets us keep doing these deep dives into the most cutting-edge, mind-blowing science on the planet. And check out our memberships. That's where we really unpack the practical implications of wild findings like DNA teleportation.
Okay, let's get back to it. If all this light and electrical information is flying around, where is it all organized? Where is it stored? Is there a central server?
Well, if the electrical patterns are the software and light is the communication medium, then the storage device and the master communication hub is what we call the Biofield.
The Biofield anatomy hypothesis. Okay. This introduces the concept that there's a complex, weak electromagnetic field that both permeates and surrounds the physical body. This isn't a new idea, right? People like Harold Saxton Burr were studying these organizing EM fields, which he called L fields, decades ago.
And the key is that this field isn't just a byproduct of chemical reactions like exhaust from a car. It's proposed to be the organizing energy structure itself, the blueprint that dictates and actually precedes physical form.
So the field comes first and the matter follows.
That's the hypothesis. It's described as a dynamic bioplasma torus field, a continually flowing donut-shaped helical structure where energy and information are stored and archived.
So if I'm visualizing this, it's like a complex spinning donut of light and information surrounding my body acting as my own personal biological data cloud. But what kind of information is stored in there? Is it just anatomical stuff? Voltage data?
It seems to be far more comprehensive. And this is where practitioners who work with energy and sound healing techniques offer a truly fascinating hypothesis based on their clinical observations.
What did they observe?
They claim that using tools like tuning forks, they can detect and clear pockets of stuck, incoherent energy or information areas of resistance in this field.
Okay, but it's the structure of this archive that's the real kicker. They claim that the stored information is layered, almost like the tree rings of your life history.
Exactly. Think of the trunk of a tree. The outer rings are the most recent years, and as you go deeper, you go further back in time. They claim the biofield is organized similarly. Current and recent life experiences are stored in the field closer to the physical body. But the earliest childhood memories, including potential traumas from gestation or birth, are stored at the outer edges of the field, which some practitioners claim can extend up to 5 feet out from the body.
Hold on, you're saying my memory of what I ate for lunch today is energetically stored close to my body, but my experience in the room might be archived 5 feet away from me in this external energetic envelope.
That's the model.
That suggests the informational storage system for me is not entirely contained within the 3 pounds of gray matter in my skull.
It profoundly challenges our definition of self, of memory, and of where consciousness might actually reside. Furthermore, this information isn't just anatomical. Practitioners claim the field archives emotional information.
Like what?
Like chronic sadness being consistently registered as a distortion off the left shoulder, or historical guilt being stuck as a dense pocket of energy off the right hip. The field becomes a living, energetic record of your entire emotional and physical journey.
If the biofield is the central archive, who is the librarian? Who's the master broadcaster that's writing to this hard drive? We have to look at the heart.
The heart is the dominant oscillator in the body. We tend to focus on its mechanical function as a pump, but the heart generates the single strongest source of electromagnetic energy in the entire body.
By how much?
Its electrical component, which we measure with an ECG, is about 60 times stronger than the brain's EEG signal.
60 times, okay.
But the magnetic field strength is the real stunner. The heart's magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field, and it's detectable several feet away from the body using sensitive magnetometers. That makes the heart the master emitter.
And how does it communicate?
Its method is incredibly precise. It communicates by modulating its rhythm, what we measure as heart rate variability, or HRV. When we achieve highly focused, smooth, and consistent heart rhythm patterns, we achieve a state called coherence.
And what does that coherent signal do to the rest of the system?
When that coherent signal is sent from the heart up to the brain, it's directly associated with heightened mental clarity, improved creativity, and the physical experience of positive feeling states. Those feelings of love, gratitude, compassion that we often describe as being felt right in the chest area.
So the heart isn't just reacting to the brain's commands, it's actively dictating the emotional and cognitive state of the brain via a powerful electromagnetic signal.
It's a two-way street, but the heart signal is far more powerful. And of course, we're not islands. We're in a constant electromagnetic dialogue with the world around us. We are affected by external EM signals, including the natural 7.83 Hz Schumann resonance.
The Earth's heartbeat.
The Earth's heartbeat, yeah.
Yeah.
The standing waves created by lightning between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere.
Yeah.
And it's no coincidence that this frequency falls right in the sweet spot between our alpha and theta brainwave states.
And this dialogue can be externally manipulated. The research into binaural beats is a perfect example of this.
It is. By introducing two slightly different low-frequency tones, one in each ear, the brain manufactures a third resultant wave. And you can effectively entrain or force the brain into states associated with deep intuition. That's the delta range. Below 4 Hz, or even what some call spiritual insight in the epsilon range, below 0.5 Hz.
You are overriding or modifying your own thoughts and physiology using external fields and resonance.
Which brings us to the application of intention and healing fields, like in Qigong or laying on of hands. These ancient practices, seen through this modern lens, are attempts to transfer, modulate, or initiate a coherent energy flow within the biofield of another person.
And there are measurable effects here. This isn't just belief.
No, we have measurable effects. Qigong masters, when emitting external cancel sticks with conscious focus, have demonstrated significant measurable alterations in their own field. We've seen changes in magnetic field strength up to 1,000 times higher than usual, and the emission of infrasonic sound pressure that coincides with their own coherent EEG alpha waves.
So, conscious volition, our intention, is not just an abstract thought. It is the very mechanism by which the biofield conductor, our consciousness, modulates the body's massive electromagnetic field to produce a physical, measurable effect on the environment or a recipient.
We are literally learning to use our own operating system to consciously interact with the fabric of reality.
Okay, we've covered the macro-level systems, the electrical blueprints in Act 1, the light-based communication network in Act 3, and this incredible biofield archive in Act 4. Now we have to drill down into the underlying physics.
Right. What allows for this instantaneous high-speed organization? Because all these systems, the voltage, the light, the field, they all have to maintain coherence at the molecular level to work.
This is where we get into the quantum symphony.
This is where we talk about waves, but not the kind you see on a lake. We're talking about the coherent soliton.
A soliton. What is that exactly?
A soliton is a self-reinforcing, nonlinear wave. It's a localized packet of energy that can travel long distances without losing energy or changing its shape.
So think of it like a highly disciplined, perfectly stable ripple traveling down a rope, just indefinitely. Why are these so important in biology?
Because they are the ideal carriers of high-speed information and also ATP energy. In our bodies, these are thought to be helical and radial waves traveling along crucial structures like proteins, microtubules inside our cells, and DNA itself.
And because they maintain their coherence and shape, they can carry a clean signal without distortion.
Exactly. They induce an endogenous stable electromagnetic field and stabilize local resonant oscillations. And if this is true, it means molecular interactions aren't just about slow, random bumping and diffusing through the liquid of the cell.
Which is the old chemical model.
The old slow model. The Soliton model suggests that molecules can interact almost instantaneously through electromagnetic resonances, like perfectly matched tuning forks vibrating in sympathy with each other. They're not waiting for diffusion, they're communicating at the speed of light through these coherent waves.
And that's the mechanism you need for the instantaneous connectivity required for regeneration and complex organization.
It is. And this connects beautifully to the idea of the living matrix. The living connective tissue matrix in our bodies, the collagen, the elastin, all the fluid around it, it's not just physical scaffolding. It's a massive, body-wide semiconductor for electricity and information.
A biological fiber optic network.
A perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And this matrix seems to operate using concepts straight out of quantum mechanics, specifically quantum resonance and maybe even entanglement or non-locality.
Entanglement. The idea that if two particles are linked, manipulating one instantaneously affects the other, no matter how far apart they are.
Spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it. But it's exactly the kind of instantaneous system-wide communication you would need to coordinate the trillions of cells in a whole organism.
So within this matrix, we have light and vibration working together.
Yes, the physics gets complex, but it involves coupled states of photons, which are the electromagnetic waves or light, and phonons, which are mechanical vibrations, like the physical base vibrations in the DNA molecule.
So light and sound, or vibration, are intrinsically linked in how our biology is regulated. They form this resonant fabric of life that ensures the entire system can vibrate in harmony.
Which is health. Health is harmony.
Okay, so if the stability of life depends on these coherent wave patterns, the obvious next question is, what happens when we introduce a decoherent or destructive frequency into the system?
That is the key to a whole new world of frequency-based treatments for disease. The idea is that frequencies positioned in what are called decoherent soliton frequency zones actively promote cellular chaos and ultimately can lead to diseases like cancer. When the communication breaks down, the physics of the system fall apart.
But the reverse is also true. This line of thinking led to the discovery of the destructive cancer resonant frequency formant, or DCRFF.
This is a truly profound line of research. Scientists found that every specific type of cancer cell appears to have a narrow band of resonant frequencies, its own specific resonant weakness, its Achilles heel.
An example.
For acute lymphoblastic leukemia cells, the DCRFF was found to lie specifically in a narrow band between 156 kilohertz and 162 kilohertz.
And why that specific range? What's special about it?
It relates to the specific physical size and internal structure of that particular cell and its components, especially the microtubules, which are very vulnerable to destruction at their own harmonic frequency.
So what did they do?
They found that by exposing these cancer cells to those specific frequencies, they could vibrate them until they literally shattered like crystal glass. It's resonant destruction, not chemical poisoning.
That's physics as therapy. It's the same principle as shattering a wine glass with a perfect musical note, but applied with surgical precision to malignant cells. We're not killing, we're detuning.
Or perhaps retuning the system by removing the dissonant notes. And on the flip side, we have what you could call healing harmonics. Specific light frequencies, like in the terahertz or near-infrared range, when they're located in coherent zones, have been shown to inhibit cancer proliferation and promote healing. It's all about restoring the system to its proper vibrational tune.
Which brings us full circle, right back to the ultra-weak photon emission, the biophotons we started with.
Exactly. We began by saying biophotonics is the cell's light-based communication system.
And now we can see it as the ultimate metric for the system's coherence. That ultra-weak photon emission is the most sensitive assay we have for the state of this coherent, resonant system. When you're stressed, when your cellular systems are struggling, the intensity and the pattern of your light emission fluctuates. Your internal harmony is literally visible in the light you emit.
All right, let's take our final breather here. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground. We started this journey with the microscopic electric phase, the voltage patterns that create the literal blueprint for your body.
We then connected that idea to the failure of the network in disease, reframing cancer as an electrical isolation problem that can potentially be fixed using electroceuticals to force those rogue cells back into the global consensus. We then expanded our view to the vast, high-speed network of the body, realizing that DNA itself can act as a fractal antenna broadcasting information via light, via biophotons. and that this information, our life history, is stored in layers of energy, like tree rings, within the biofield anatomy.
And finally, we just drilled down into the deep vibrational mechanisms, the soliton waves and quantum resonance that define health as coherence and disease as decoherence. This allows us to envision shattering diseased cells with nothing more than a targeted frequency.
The common thread linking regeneration, healing fields, and frequency-based medicine is, it's just undeniable at this point. The body is not merely chemical hardware. It's an electrically controlled information system.
And we don't have to rely only on slow-moving chemistry to fix it. We can intervene and communicate directly with the electrical and informational patterns that are actually running the show.
This feels like the beginning of a true paradigm shift, moving us beyond the limitations of purely mechanical or chemical interventions and into an era of informational control, a whole new age of medicine.
It's so important to acknowledge that this modern bioelectric paradigm isn't a wholly new invention. It's really a dramatic resurgence of ideas put forward by brilliant pioneers who were, frankly, marginalized by the dominant chemical and genetic focus of the 20th century.
We really do owe a massive debt to people like Alexander Gerbich, who, way back in 1912, proposed mitogenetic radiation as a non-mechanical deterministic principle in cell division.
What we now call biophotons.
Exactly. And we have to mention the work of Harold Saxton Burr and his L fields, and especially Robert Becker, who showed the inherent electrical control of growth.
Becker's work was incredible. He demonstrated that bone acts as a semiconductor, and that the healing of fractures correlated with these highly negative electrical potentials at the injury site. They all laid the groundwork for the idea that cell regulation depends on intrinsic EM oscillations.
And the fact that their work is now being so dramatically validated and extended by modern researchers like Michael Levin suggests we are decisively exiting the chemical age and entering the bioelectric age.
The real beauty of this new paradigm is the high-level, top-down approach it offers to biological control, instead of the bottom-up micromanagement approach of trying to edit every single problematic gene.
We are learning to manipulate the informational pattern, the high-level software itself.
We're learning to communicate with the system in its native language, which is voltage and light and resonance.
The ultimate goal, then, is to understand the organization of the living organism through this resonant fabric of light, and to become fluent in its specific language of photon emission.
And healing, in this new context, simply involves restoring the coherent frequency. If illness is disharmony, if it's the instruments in the orchestra playing out of tune, then by manipulating electrical signals, light or sound, we're acting as the biofield conductor. We're just getting the system back in tune.
This synthesis of knowledge, from cellular voltage networks all the way up to quantum electromagnetic fields, it offers a path toward radically new capabilities, whether it's fixing complex organ shapes after injury, overcoming major diseases like cancer, or ultimately achieving large-scale collective biological purpose.
It's the realization that the blueprint is information, and information, unlike physical matter, is easily and elegantly manageable if you know the language.
It's the ultimate realization of the potential of the living system to self-correct and self-organize and heal, provided the right instructional signal is given. So, here's your synthesis for the day. This deep dive has shown you that your body is constantly running, communicating, and regulating itself using voltage, light, and resonance far, far faster than chemistry can ever explain.
We move from the microscopic electric face blueprint that guides the shape of your organs through the startling reality of DNA teleportation, all the way to the quantum soliton wave that ensures high-speed information transfer across your entire being.
You now have a framework to understand that health is coherence and disease is informational isolation. You are not just a collection of proteins and chemicals. You are a complex, dynamic information system governed by electrical commands and literally radiating light.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought to leave you with. Something to mull over that ties together the biology, the physics, and the nature of the self.
If the biofield, that massive, complex electromagnetic torus of information around you, stores your emotional memories and your entire life history in layers of energy like tree rings, and a significant portion of that information is external to the physical body.
What does this fundamentally tell us about consciousness, and where does the essence of you truly reside when the physical hardware ages or breaks down or fails?
The software just might be the most enduring part of the entire system. We'll see you next time.